All right, let's start again with the ghost stories. And I don't think it's as late as it was last time. But my sister may come home at any moment, so just so you know, I might abruptly cut this off. We'll see. We are going to talk about the family house ghosts, the soldier in the doorway, and the man in the white shirt. So one of the first ghosts I remember seeing at the old family house was this soldier man standing in the living room doorway. Now, the living room doorway was like a double door type situation where they had. So, this house was built during the Second World War, I want to say, 1950s, during that Civil Works projects era. And so this house had built-in sliding doors, but they were like they were translucent, kind of. They weren't 100% opaque, but you could see through them, and they had like leaves, like fall leaves kind of plastered within them. They were very pretty, but they pulled out from the walls, and so you could close them. When we moved from New Mexico to California to be with my dad and his side of the family, when we would stay at my dad's family house, because it was his parents' house, and he lived there, his brother lived there, his sister lived there, her children lived there, their two great aunts lived there. When we would go stay there for like the weekend or something, I don't remember, but we would sleep in the living room, and sometimes they would close the door. This particular time, I don't think everybody was ready for bed yet, so they were still open. And I remember, and okay, so directly across from the doorway was the front house window, and the front house window was this huge, it was as big as the double door. It was huge, and it was very tall, and it had like a lattice thing going on, so it had like shelving type thing, but it was huge. And they would close the curtains at night, but so for some reason I was laying like this. So you'll be the door, here's the window, and I was laying head towards the window, feet towards the door. Don't know why. Silly young me. Didn't know any better. I was 2.5 when we came from New Mexico, so I was pretty young. I don't know. It was between 2.5 and 5 that this happened. So I was laying there, and I was in that state of almost sleep, and I looked, like I tilted my head up and I looked towards the doorway because I was having like weird like in and out sleep moment. And so I heard or I sensed something, so I looked up at the doorway and I saw this ghosty figure, very male. To me, he looked tall, but again, I was laying down and I was little, but he might have been like 5'10", between 5'9.5" and 5'11" is what I want to say. And he had military cut, but he was shadowy, but not shadow figure. It was more like just the light wasn't directly on him, so I couldn't really see him very well. And he was built like a military man. And then that's all I remember seeing. And then I woke up. And of course, I told my dad, and my dad said he thought it was his dad, but I don't think that was because he was young. This man was, I want to say, in his 30s, early 30s. And my grandfather died in his 50s, almost 60s. So I don't think that was my grandfather. Another military ghost, but not my grandfather. But, so that was the first ghost I ever saw there. The second ghost, I'm trying to think of who was the second, but maybe because of the way they're ordered, I won't go who's next, but that was the first ghost I saw there. One of the other main ghosts in that house was also male. I don't think I ever saw that ghost ever again. I think that was the one and done for that ghost. So he may have been just passing by, I don't know. Or maybe he was visiting and then left. I'm not too sure. But for the other ghost, the man in the white t-shirt, and we called him that just because you couldn't see features. It vaguely feels like he may have had long hair or a man bun. But it was just a man in a white t-shirt. You just knew he had a white shirt on, like a white plain crew neck, kind of baggy shirt. And every one of my cousins have seen that one, and they'll we would catch glimpses of him, particularly around like the bedroom my aunts used to sleep in when they were children, and that bathroom. The only one I really remember seeing him was, I couldn't sleep, and I got up at like 3 a.m. in the morning, and I went outside to the yard, because this house, again, was on half acre. So it had the main house, which had big living room, and it had 1, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms. The fourth bedroom was like a double bedroom. It had 2 baths. It had a dining area, little kitchen nook, kitchen, another little wet room area, pantry area before you went outside. And then you went outside, there was a patio area, 2-car garage. Around the corner along the house ran the corral and the hideaway, and then there was an outside kitchen with a restroom, and then beyond that was another patio with another like outside room and a tool shed connected and as one solid building. And then there was the yard, and the yard was filled with fruit trees and grapevines and roses, and it was like the Garden of Eden. It was so beautiful. My great aunt Lola took care of that yard. Oh, when she died, it died. But it had a big avocado tree, and it was glorious. It was so pretty. So 3 a.m. woke up, middle of the night, couldn't sleep, got out of bed, went outside. We did have dogs. We did have a dog. So I wasn't alone. But I don't know. I want to say between middle school and high school is when this happened. Went outside and I walked all the way, because we had monkey bars. They had really old monkey bars that were there. So I went all the way, padded over barefoot the wet grass all the way to the monkey bars, climbed up on top of the monkey bars, and just sat and stared at the moon for the longest time. I also remember seeing an owl. There was an owl, which was weird because I'd never seen an owl before. That was the first time I ever saw an owl. I was looking at the moon, I turned and I saw an owl, and then it was just sitting perched on top of the giant like thing that covered it was like a wooden structure that covered that outside patio. It was pretty, so cool. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so I saw it, and then it flew away, and then I saw the little boy ghost by the little wooden gate. We'll talk about him later. And then beyond that, to the bathroom that leads into my room, mine and my sister's shared room that I'd come from, I saw the man in the white shirt in the bathroom, and he had turned from staring at me, and he looked like he was trying to get into the room. He looked like he went to get into the room, but then he bounced back and then evaporated. So like we did have set up protection parameter in our rooms all the time. So he probably bounced off of that. But that was a trip. And that's the only one I really distinctly remember seeing. And I went, huh. Weird. And then went back to staring. I went back to staring at the moon for a while, and then I was like, it's probably late. I came out here like 3 a.m., so it's probably like been an hour. Let me go back inside. I've had enough nice, cool nighttime air in my lungs, and I've stared up at the moon and the stars for long enough. Let me try to go back to sleep. And then I pitter-pattered back to my room. But that's the only story I remember of that particular ghost, because I know my siblings have more stories and more interactions with him, but that was the only one I specifically remembered. And the other things I felt in that room might have been him, but I'm not 100% sure. But that was the only one I remember seeing him distinctly in. And I did tell my sister when she woke up the next day, but I don't know if it was next day, but I did tell her about it. I don't know if she remembers, but so yeah, those are the 2 stories I'm going to tell this time around. And we're going to leave it at that. Thank you for joining me.